We're doing the Palfish live stream. I'm gonna edit the title of this video later, but for now, just enjoy the live stream. This is our last 70 Wonders live stream as far as I can tell. So I hope you guys enjoy. I'm gonna go check on my students real quick. And, let's begin. Alright, so come on. What we got? I actually need to shave my beard. Welcome, Ing, to the live stream. I'm going to put up the first page of reading for you guys. It's the history of tea tonight on 70 Wonders. And I'm just going to keep the camera here. You can read this. I'm going to put a translation in the comment section. Give me a couple seconds to translate it into Mandarin so that you can properly understand it later on. And to everyone on YouTube who comes up, welcome to the live stream. I won't be paying attention, but I basically have my class initially to talk to first, so 1 second. Alright. I need to get this translated. Alright, so where is our shoot. Yeah, this isn't working, guys. I'm just gonna go back to the damn it, no! Alright. Alright, so to begin the live stream, I'm sorry, I tried looking for the translation, but for now, we're just going to have to read from the book, from the passage. Welcome Maggie V and everyone else to the live stream. Tonight is our second to last, if not our last, 70 Wonders of China, starting on the history of tea. Let's read below. The first people known to have cultivated tea were the Ba, who lived in the eastern part of the Sichuan Basin some 3,000 years ago. Records state that the Ba presented the first king of the Western Zhao with a tribute of cinnabar, lacquer tea, and honey. In the Warring States period, tea cultivation spread down the Yangtze. A new country, Tea Hill, was even named after its main product. In Huang Province, at first tea was chewed raw, cooked as a food, and drunk as a medical herb, prized for its stimulating properties. The fresh leaves were picked in the early spring, steamed, pounded, pressed into cakes. Among the early tea drinkers were the religious practitioners, Taoists who roamed in search of the elixir of eternal life, and Buddhists who required tea to keep themselves awake during the meditation. According to the legend, tea was discovered by the Bodhrama, the Indian monk who found Zen Buddhism. Welcome Bear07 and welcome ZJD15561. I'm glad you could join us tonight. Zen Buddhism at the Shaolin Monastery. Wary, he wept, and where his tears fell, tea leaves sprang up. Comment ahead in the section below. The opening of the Grand Canal in the Shuo dynasty, which connected the Yangtze with the Yellow Rivers, accelerated China's economic. Welcome Miss Yi and welcome Yang351 to the live stream. Can't do much about the web tonight. Welcome, Henry Common. This is the second to last, if not the last live stream for 70 Wonders, and we are on tea. Growth and greatly facilitated the transportations of commodities in the south, such as tea. In the late 8th century, at the height of the Tang dynasty, when tea drinking had become part of daily life in China, the Iraq scholar Lu Yu composed the Tea Classic, the first major work on tea, describing its origins, preparation methods, and the tea-growing regions of China, even ranking different sources of water. In 782, the court imposed China's first tea tax with stiff penalties, even death, for smugglers. The imperial tea gardens in the region west of Lake Tai, where some 30,000 corvette laborers toiled, produced a tea known as the purple bamboo shoot exclusively for the emperor and his court. Welcome, Assassin EA. Can you hear me better, Miss Yi? Having spread to the neighboring peoples in Tibet, Korea, and Japan, tea became a crucial commodity in China's Seshapani attempts to keep the converted semi-nomadic tribes on its northern and eastern borders at bay. Though the addiction to these tribal teas, welcome Green 666, the Chinese were able to acquire from them the very horses they needed to defend themselves. This was the beginning, welcome back Assassin EA, of the fabled tea and horse trade, which having failed in its purpose to face Genghis Khan. Khan's onslaught was later revered as a cornerstone of Chinese foreign policy in the Ming. In the Song dynasty, the country's tea production center shifted to northern parts of the Fujian as the Song court established a monopoly on trade. The most exclusive tea of this era was so-called wax tea, a green powdered tea produced through an elaborate process, then perfumed, pressing into cakes, and sealed in wax. At the same time, the Song saw the gradual move from steamed green brick tea to loose leaf green tea, which was easier to produce in the mountain retreats. It's interesting. Welcome 694. Glad you could join us tonight. Let me try and move somewhere closer, and we'll see what we can do. Now, I'm going to try and move closer to the Wi-Fi box real quick, and then we will continue reading forward. Ah, darn dogs. Give me 2 seconds, YouTube. There shall be light. And give me 2 seconds, Palfish. Dad. Alright. Welcome back, everyone. Alright, welcome Sasha Pei to the live stream. Okay, at the same time, the Song saw a gradual move from steamed green brick tea to the loose leaf green brick tea, which was easier to produce. In their mountain retreats, scholars, poets, and painters held Dao-che gatherings, competing to see what they could beat the powdered tea into the most perfect froth. Welcome, Nancy. I'm glad you could join us tonight. And make the best tasting brew. For this purpose, the black glazed tea bowls from Jingyang Cont in Hongjiang were deemed the most appropriate. After the Mongols conquered all of China, establishing the Yuan dynasty in the 1279, the blue and white porcelain Welcome Sue1105 and welcome SSHINNXXXXIN. Let me check the sound on my end. My volume's all the way up. I'm not sure what's going on with the sound. Testing, 1, 2, 3, testing, 1, 2, 3. Can you guys hear me? EA, can you hear me? Welcome back 694 and XXXIN. Can you guys hear me? After the Mongols conquered all of China, establishing the Yuan dynasty, welcome Stone AOA, in 1279, the blue and white porcelain teacups from Jiangdongxi replaced the black glazed cups of the most fashionable teaware. Buddhism and Taoist temples conferred large tea gatherings that provided the impetus for what later became the most formalized ritual ever conceived by man, the Japanese tea ceremony, of which we can talk about after the live stream a little bit more, or after this reading. The Mongols, for their part, under the influence of the Tibetans, whose Lamist religion they had adopted, added a new twist by taking their tea with horse milk and salt. By the Ming Dynasty, loose-leaf tea was firmly established as the main tea type, while the brick teas were almost exclusively used for the border trade. Pan-frying the leaves replaced steaming as the most common processing method, as well as the traditional green tea, post-fermented black tea, yellow tea, and white tea began to appear. Welcome, Judy. I'm glad you could join us tonight. Fully fermented black tea was developed in the Wongying Mountains of Fujian province, and teas flavored with flowers like jasmine, roses, and osmuths were also popular. The first reference to tea in European literature was in 1559 by the Venetian author Guangbangsha Ramshu in his Voyages and Travels. Welcome, Genrot Z and 2A7. I'm glad you could join us tonight. In 610, the Dutch East India Company returned to Europe with its first cargo of tea. The British and other European countries and the Americans soon followed suit, and during the 18th and 19th century, tea became the pivotal commodity of China trade, leading to the Opium Wars and the birth of India's tea industry. The Russians, for their part, traded over land, transporting enormous quantities of brick tea back to Moscow with caravans through Central Asia. During the 19th century, British imports of black tea skyrocketed, creating a gold rush for China's tea farmers, who broke new land and expanded production to keep pace with the ever-increasing demand. But the Indian tea industry, with its industrial-scale plantations and tailor-made blends for the British public, proved a ruthless competitor. Testing, 1, 2, 3. I am not sure what's going on with the sound tonight, guys. I am not sure what's going on with the sound at this time. Be patient. By the 1880s, China's tea export to the West had peaked, and was not until revived until the Communist Revolution in 1949. Welcome, Chris XIE. I'm glad you could join us tonight. Alright. Can you hear my voice clearly? Apparently I'm having sound difficulties with the phone tonight, so that's not good. The country's tea industry has been gaining pace ever since. Since the death of Mao and China's opening to the world, tea has enjoyed a commercial and cultural renaissance in China. In 2005, the country regained its formal position by replacing India as the world's largest tea exporter. Welcome back, Judy. Glad you could rejoin us. Can you hear the sound? Welcome, Sky Lou. Glad you could rejoin us tonight. I am not sure what's going on with the sound, and I'm not sure what's going on with Palfish, but I will go check our settings. Let's see. We've got only 2 sections or so in the book, and I can check those out. Let's see. Doop-a-doop-doop-doop-doop-doo. What's this? Nope, that's not what I want. Alright, so the Wi-Fi is good, so I'm not sure what's going on with the sound tonight. But let's go on to our next little section here. Hong Kong and Manchu. Welcome, lovely me. I'm glad you could join us tonight. This is probably the last section on our 70 Wonders of China, so stay tuned. As a British colony for 155 years, Hong Kong became a unique place, a bridge between China and the world, a highly modern cosmopolitan city enjoying greater average wealth per inhabitant than its imperial master on the other side of the globe. Since it returned to Chinese sovereignty as a special administrative region of the People's Republic in 1997, it has been the richest city in China, offering a unique blend of internationalism, financial and commercial services, a strong legal system, and a superb infrastructure, from the highly efficient underground railway to the escalator that takes pedestrians up the steep slope in the middle of the island. Its soaring architecture is epitomized by the gleaming skyscrapers. Welcome, X, to the live stream. I'm glad you could join us tonight. Along the waterfront and in the Central District, where 2 major late 20th century buildings and homes of the Bank of China and Hong Kong and Shanghai Bank face one another. The peak towers above the island with its colonial-era mansions reached by tramway that runs vigorously to the top. There lies one of the great walks of any city, a circular path from which the panorama of the densest populated metropolis and its teeming harbor unfold. Welcome back, Judy. Unseen by most visitors, the SAR also made extensive country parks, where one may encounter water buffalo wandering along paths, or less picturesquely, packs of wild dogs. Welcome, Alex Hongzhou, to the live stream. Vestiges of colonial era remain, the centrepas to war dead. The cricket club and a few buildings like the Anglican Cathedral and the former residence of the colonial governors. But Hong Kong has long been a predominantly Chinese city. Welcome to the live stream. Its people speaking the Cantonese tongue of the South and treasuring their identity as Hong Kong Chinese. Today they make up 95% of the population. For all the fine Western restaurants, the SAR probably has the widest variety of Chinese cuisine, and is a major center for the Chinese media, publishing, cantopop, and cinema. For decades before the handover to China in 1997, Chinese businessmen and civil servants had taken a major role in the running of commerce and effective administration that have become the hallmarks of Hong Kong. despite the last-ditch introduction of democracy by the final British governor, Christopher Patten. Just before the handover, the old colonial pattern of rule was re-established after China assumed sovereignty. Through elections are held on various franchises for the Legislative Council, the introduction of democracy has been slow. Still, the 7 million people of the SAR enjoy a large degree of liberty, freedom in speech, religion and press, freedom to demonstrate, freedom to move in and out the specular new airport, and freedom to shift their money round the world as they wish. I'm really not sure how to fix the sound problem tonight, Judy, but I wish I knew what was going on with my phone. When Britain gained possession of Hong Kong Island in 1842, after the First Opium War against the Qing dynasty, the Foreign Secretary of the time was disappointed that London had gained only a barren rock, rather than a concession and prosperous trading port. By 1860, the benefits that the rocky, waterless island offered as a strategically placed post had become evident, and Britain added territory across the bay in the Kowloon area. In 1898, London had made another move by leasing from China for 99 years land known as the New Territories, which neighbors Really? Alright, welcome Pia to the live stream. Sorry for the sound quality tonight. I'm not sure how to fix it, and I'm not sure what's wrong, but bear with me. China's southern province of Guangdong was the expiry of the lease which determined the timing of the handover in 1997. From the start, Hong Kong was both a fast-growing trading center and a haven for Chinese wanting to leave the mainland for political or commercial reasons. The British introduced modern methods and governments which impressed Chinese reformers and revolutionaries. Sun Yat-sen, the anti-imperial thinker and the agitator who became the first president of Republican China in 1912, studied medicine and converted to Christianity during a spell in Hong Kong. British trading firms prospered greatly by using the harbor to run their commerce with China, while Chinese businessmen saw its potential as an entrepot between their homeland and the outside world, safe from the upheavals of late imperial era. By the 1930s, Hong Kong was prosperous, if socially somewhat sleepy outpost of the empire. Then the Japanese overran it at Christmas 1941 and imposed an often brutal occupation for the 3.5 years. When Japan was defeated in 1945, the British returned and did not carry through proposed democratic reforms. But although the governors still came from London, and Hong Kong was seen as a jewel of the British Empire, the crushing defeat of 1941 had destroyed the myth of European superiority. The communist victory in China in 1949 set a flood of refugees heading south from Shanghai and the East Coast, many of them businessmen whose descendants still figure prominently in the SRA's Commerce and Finance. As the refugees established factories, Hong Kong became the first great exporter of cheap goods from China, but its entrepreneurs rapidly moved up the value chain, adding to their fortunes by property development of the territory's rare and increasingly expensive land. As China turned toward a market economy in the 1980s, the movement across the border with Guangdong became easier. Most of Hong Kong's manufacturing was transferred to the mainland, leaving the city as a base for management, finance, and services. Welcome, Zoe. I'm glad you could join us tonight. Recently, the mainlanders have repaid the compliment by taking advantage of relaxed regulations on cross-border travel to patronize Hong Kong's glitzy retailers. Prosperity has also boosted the former Portuguese colony of Macau. An hour's trip by hydrofoil ferry across the Pearl River Delta, and now another SRA after being handed down to Beijing by Lisbon. Once a subnull outpost of Europe, complete with Portuguese cuisine, brightly painted houses, and the magnificent faircade. Welcome Adamar3983. I'm glad you could join us for tonight's live stream. And welcome anyone on YouTube. I'm glad you could be with us tonight too. Its economy is based firmly on gambling. Punters from China and Asia flock to its casino. American promoters from Las Vegas have arrived recently. Tower blocks have sprouted along the waterfront, and Macau has been singled out for praise by Chinese president. Still away from the roulette wheels and blackjack tables, Macau and its two outlying islands offer an older way of life, with simple beach restaurants and a less frantic pace than its big brother across the water. And, let's see. When Hong Kong returned to Chinese rule in 1997, pessimists saw it becoming just another Chinese city. But there has been little sign of that. Beijing has intervened on occasion, for instance, in replacing the first chief executive of the SAR after his performance was regarded as falling short. In seeking to stimulate the economy during a property slump at the start of the 21st century, links with the mainland have been steadily fostered, particularly in the Pearl River Delta stretching into Guangdong. Many more mainlanders are to be found in the SAR these days, but none of that has done much to cramp Hong Kong's self-confident style or to lessen its role in the globalized world. In its new guise as the SAR, it remains a great international center, home to global companies attracted to its administrative, managerial, legal, and infrastructural strengths as the base from which to do business in the mainland. Despite periodic upsets such as the SARS disease outbreak, bird flu, and short-lived property slumps, Hong Kong appears to have found a formula for success which rests on its people, its geographic position, and its sheer usefulness to the rest of the world. So we have two more sections in the book. Welcome Austin8B5. Glad you could join us tonight. Give me 2 seconds to find a charger. And go ahead and read ahead on our next section, which is Taiwan. Alright, so welcome back Austin8B5. Let's start reading on Taiwan, and welcome to any YouTubers who come to the live stream now. Glad you could join us tonight. What's going on? Alright, that's all good. Anyway. Long known in the West from the sailor's cry, the island, off the coast of China, has an eventful history, in which its relationship with the mainland has gone through many twists and turns. Taiwan's older history is still shrouded, welcome Eric MSL, in a good deal of mystery, but in more modern times it has seen a European and Japanese presence as well as settlers, pirates, and one of China's greatest figures. The island rugged beauty, with mountain peaks, deep gorges, fast-running rivers and lakes, have always been appealed to Chinese sensibilities, and attract growing numbers of tourists today. Its deep forests of cinder, oak, pine, and champor, treehouse-abundant wildlife, and cultural heartland in the south of the island is rich in temples, pagodas, and classic pavilions. In central mountains lies one of Taiwan's greatest beauty spots, the Sun Moon Lake, surrounded by thick forests and peaks. It gets its name from the way in which it looks like a round sun from some viewpoints and a crescent moon from others. Welcome, Axon. I'm glad you could join us tonight. Though it can be clogged with tourists, every morning walks along forests and short trails remain an uplifting experience. In the north of the island lie paddy fields, hot springs, beaches, strange geological formations, orchard farms, and wildly highland roads. The island cities are resoundingly modern, the capital of Taipei boasting a new skyscraper reaching up 101 floors into the sky. The memorial to the former ruler, Chiang Kai-shek, towers over a huge square flanked by halls for exhibits and performances, with 18 different styles of Chinese windows used in the surrounding walls. The city, full of temples, epitomized by Dragon Temple in the old section known for its fine carvings, and is also celebrated for its markets, selling everything from gutted snakes to the counterfeit luxury goods, which become one of the island's specialties as it began its economic growth. The National Palace Museum in Taipei is a great wonder, housing a unique collection of Chinese art, brought to the island in 4,800 packing cases when the nationalist government of Chiang Kai-shek fled across the strain from advancing communists on the mainland in 1949. Among the endless treasures are the finest porcelain and lacquer, intricately carved jade and ivory, ancient bronzes, books and manuscripts, and 79 wooden cups. To that they can, all fit in a single large cup. Long and predominantly agricultural territory, Taiwan developed into one of the tiger economies of the Far East, becoming a major producer of computer chips and other economic goods. But its separation from the mainland since 1949 has created a complex political issue, with Beijing insisting it is an integral part of China and the president of Taipei following the course that amounts of autonomy, with some politicians calling for independence that the Chinese government and army are committed to preventing. Welcome, Austin 8B5. I'm glad you could join us tonight. We are on Taiwan, covering 36,000 square kilometers, with the small islands. Welcome, Yongli of Kemo and Masu. Welcome, Lori Rose. Close to the mainland, Taiwan has a population of about 23 million. Most are descended from Aboriginal peoples. Only 14% descended from the mainland Chinese. Some native Taiwanese have their roots in farming communities which prospered on the rich plains in the center and southwest of the island. Others are far from more warlike people who lived in the mountains and kept their traditional way of life well into the last century. Welcome, Lori Rose. I'm glad you could rejoin us. The first explorers probably crossed the 145-kilometer Taiwan Strait from the mainland in the early period of the Han Dynasty, around 200 BC, when the Chinese called it the island of Yangchao. In 239 AD, the kingdom of Wu sent a 10,000-man force to take the territory, but the occupation was evidently not permanent. Since the 15th century, the eunuch navigator Jingho reported his discovery of the island, which then became known as Taiwan, meaning Terrenced Bay. Immigrants had come from the provinces of Fengjie and Guangdong during the first millennium, the newcomers settling the agricultural land and joining the cultivation of sugar, rice, and tea. Successive waves from the mainland pushed the original inhabitants of the island further and further inland. Taiwan administered itself largely independently of Chinese mainland, and in the 16th century, its geographical position made it a favored port of call for Western merchants. The Dutch set up a settlement in Taiwan, drove out the Spaniards who tried to colonize the north of the island, and built 3 forts, the ruins of which can be visited today. They also imported opium from their colony of Java in the East Indies and taught the island's inhabitants to smoke it with tobacco, a habit which subsequently spread across the Taiwan Strait into China. At the same time, Taiwan gained notoriety from the pirates who sheltered in the inlets along the rocky coast. One was appointed by the last Ming emperor to command his forces as the dynasty fought against the challenge from the Manchus in the mid-17th century. The pirate's son became the most famous Chinese figures, the Admiral Huang Xia, who after the Ming failed to defeat the Manchus as they advanced from the northeast, drove the Dutch from the island, and turned Taiwan into his personal fiefdom centered on the southern city of Tainan. The Japanese had long designs on Taiwan, and after defeating China in a war in 1895, forced Beijing to cede the island as a colony. Japanese rule was harsh, but it also brought some modernization in fields like education and public services. In 1945, however, the defeat of Japan brought the island's return to Chinese rule, and as his communist enemies advanced, Chiang Kai-shek prepared to evacuate his government, welcome F1A, I'm glad you could join us tonight, and remaining troops across the strain. A massacre of native inhabitants in 1947 set the tone for the oppressive nationalist regime, which ruled under the martial law after 1949. But in the last decade, democracy has been introduced. The Kuomintang Party, which Chiang and his son led, lost 2 successive presidential elections to the Democratic Progressive Party, which appealed to the Taiwanese identity against the rule of Chinese who had come to the island in 1949. But the island still calls itself the Republic of China and faces a future as challenging its past. I'm going on to the very last section. So, the 70th wonder of China, people, overseas Chinese. This section is not necessarily about China itself, but the people in China who have migrated beyond its borders. We will finish this section, look at a few pictures, and then we'll discuss 1 or 2 things that you guys have questions about. Go ahead and read ahead. I'll be starting in 2 seconds. And now, immigrant communities stretching from Britain to Australia, from Canada to Indonesia, make the Chinese one of the most widely spread peoples on Earth. Chinatowns give cities like New York and London part of their character. Welcome Barrow 7, I'm glad you could join us. I hope you go in a James Bond movie in the future. Chinese have moved in to British Columbia and California in large numbers, while in many Southeast Asian nations they play a major role in business. But this Empire the Bamboo Network, by two American writers, Murray Windabaugh and Sam Hughes, in their book of the same name, is little recognized as a significant global economic force, despite numbering an estimate 34 million people. Musicians like the cellist Yo-Yo Ma, or figures like the architect IMP, may be internationally famous alongside Chinese actors making their mark in the film world. But most overseas Chinese keep a low profile. Traditionally, they concealed their wealth behind the blank walls of their houses. There is good reason for this. They are the sons and daughters of refugees who fled the turbulent and regime changes in their homeland, and found it prudent to draw as little attention to themselves as possible in their new settled countries. Like Jews in Europe, whom represent in a number of ways, they have been subject to, at best, discrimination and at worst, pogroms. This began in the start of the 20th century. The United States passed legislation to limit the rights of Chinese immigrants who crossed the Pacific. So actually, I read a book on this in college that we can probably that I could probably talk about after I finish reading this. To help build railways or mine gold, and then stayed. More recently, mobs in several Southeast Asian countries have taken Chinese as targets. Tens of thousands were killed in Indonesia in 1965, and fresh attacks erupted in the 1990s. Such attacks are fueled largely by the economic success of overseas China. As the author Ling Pan has observed, it is hard to imagine Southeast Asia without Chinese commerce. In Thailand, Chinese run big banks and the huge CP Agricultural Group, and the much revered King Bhumibol is the son of the Thai Chinese mother. In the Philippines, they control major companies. In Malaysia, despite a policy of positive discrimination toward a majority of Malays, they are still major economic players. Companies are sometimes described as Alibaba business, with native a la front men who ensure that they qualify for subsidies allocated to Malays, and the Baba Chinese behind actually managing the concern. In Vietnam, Chinatown of Ho Chi Minh City has revered as the country has moved toward market reforms. In Indonesia, the Chinese-owned Salam Group is estimated to account for 5% of the gross domestic product under the former president Suharto. Though some Chinese Americans have gone into politics, immigrant Chinese rarely seek positions of state power in Asia, since this would impose them to further unwelcome attention and jealousy. When Corazon Aquino became president of the Philippines after democratization there, few knew that the maiden name of the Corazon, which gave her the nickname of Cory, came from the name of her immigrant Chinese grandfather. In Thailand, a further disguise of nomenclature was introduced when ethnic Chinese were obligated to take a Thai name. Throughout the overseas Chinese world, family networks are of extreme importance, partly as a matter of tradition, and partly for protection. Family members are sent to run branches of the central business dispersed across several countries. When the patriarch dies, the elder son is called back from whenever he is working to assure the leadership of the business empire. Relationships between families stretching back for generations between businessmen from different countries with common provincial or clan roots also play key roles. How that fits with the modern reforms of corporate governance and transparency is a sensitive issue for Chinese business in the 21st century. Under the Chinese Empire, immigration was not encouraged and at times positively prohibited. Though great fleets of imperial junks sailed far and wide in the 17th century, links to the rest of the world were tightly controlled in the court. Welcome to the live stream. I'm glad you could join us tonight in Beijing. Still, Chinese traders settled in Indonesia, Japan, and the Philippines. But before the coming of Westerners in the mid-19th century, the port city of Guangzhou in southern China was the only one officially allowed to trade with foreigners by sea. As a result, it became the channel through which Chinese, mainly from southeast coast, went abroad, and the language spoken today in most Chinatowns is the Cantonese dialect. As immigration grew in the 19th century, inhabitants in the east coast province of Fujian and from the island of Hainan make up another big wave of immigrants, many of them moving to the British colony of Singapore, where they came to constitute a majority of the population. The imposition of China on treaty ports by the Europeans during the 19th century brought another point of departure from Chinese from their homeland, including laborers who helped build the U.S. railways. The spread of Western Christian missionary activity led to the bright young converts being sent for further study abroad, such as Charlie Song from Shanghai, who returned home from America to start building a huge fortune by printing Bibles and became father to a powerful clan. Though some traveled in Europe, the main destinations were Southeast Asia and the Pacific Rim, stretching from Australia to Canada and the United States, where they retained close links with their native regions, regarding themselves as remaining Chinese, even if they never returned home. As the Qing Empire stumbled toward its grave in the early 20th century, the overseas Chinese provided havens and funding for revolutionary movements. The first president of the Republican China, Sun Yat-sen, cultivated them and was on a fundraising tour of the United States. In October 1911, when the revolution broke out in China, which would overthrow the empire. In the opposite direction, overseas Chinese moved back across the Pacific from America, Canada, and Australia in the early 20th century to apply technologies and lessons they have absorbed abroad. For instance, setting up the first Chinese department stores in the booming city of Shanghai. When China adopted market-oriented economic policies in the 1980s, overseas Chinese were the natural finance and industrial partners, even if many of their fathers had fled the mainland after the communist victory of 1949. They operated primarily through Hong Kong, which, despite returning to Chinese sovereignty in 1997, retains an equivocal status, half now part of China, half still the hub of overseas Chinese. In recent years, an increasing number of Chinese from the diaspora have returned to their mainland primarily to oversee business on the spot or to bring expertise in law, accounting, and other professional services. But the overseas Chinese remain one of the world's major transnational and transcontinental entities, as they go about their business so successfully that, were they to be a single country, they would occupy a significant place among the economies of the world. Welcome A to the live stream. We're in the last 12 minutes. We can go to looking at the pictures. We have just finished our last Wonder of China. I'm glad you could witness it. This was overseas Chinese. In this picture is Canton in southern China, the city of Canton, or Canton. trading port. Right here is the Chinese parade in Chinatown, Manhattan, New York. Up here is Chinese immigrants working on the Transcontinental Railroad in the U.S. Previous page right here, the 228th Memorial Peace Park in Taipei with skyscrapers in the background. Up here is the grand entrance to Chiang Kai-shek's Memorial Hall in Taipei. The picture on this page is evening traffic in the city of Taipei with the night skyscrapers. Right here these are traders, stockbrokers in the Hong Kong Stock Exchange and their offices. Right here is the Chinese painting entitled Victoria that shows Hong Kong Harbor from 1850 to 1859. Beautiful place. Over here is the residential skyscrapers on the Tlijing Ying Island, Hong Kong. On the previous page, we have right here Hong Kong and a portion of the Victoria Harbor in 1880. A smaller port back then, much different place. We also went through and read about tea. So right up here is a member of the Chinese literati being served tea in southern China. Right here are some modern day tea harvesters harvesting wonderful tea. Up here is a 19th century Chinese sculpture at Louis de Camos Museum. And on the previous page right here is the early 19th century Chinese painting that shows tea pickers and the process of tea picking. Starting with picking from the fields, bringing leaves to the warehouse to pick clean. And above is a 10 centimeter tall silver teapot with lid dates from the Yongjing period. To people on YouTube as well, this is our last 70 Wonders live stream, but not our last Palfish live stream. Tomorrow will be the Civil War, Chapter 3, General Grant's memoir. And welcome, Brom, to the Palfish broadcast. We are in the last 9 minutes. We had just finished our 70 Wonders of China book. We finally finished it. We've gone through all 70 wonders. If you have any questions or comments about the 70 Wonders of China, please state so below. I can go through the material in this book privately with any individuals in a private lesson from now on. After this live stream, I will not be doing another reading from the 70 Wonders of China. This book took way too long to read through. Took a good 3 weeks to a month just to get through the material in this book with all the students. Let's see. I said I was going to talk about a couple things. Alright, so testing. 1, 2, 3 testing. I know the sound was bad tonight for everyone on Palfish. I'm sorry about that, Brom. Let's see. Welcome, Lily85. Glad you could join us tonight. I'm going to type something in the comments below. So this was part of the readings tonight. And my friend in college had a favorite tea toward black tea. I myself, usually if I order tea at a restaurant, go for Earl Grey. tea. So, but my friend in college very much was a tea addict and basically had a huge pantry full of tea. Yeah, I'm just gonna type down comments below. We have basically 6 minutes on the live stream. I have no idea what's going on with the timing, but we have 6 minutes. What about your favorite tea? Post in the comments below. Here is some YouTube Inception here. Just above here is YouTube, or our live streaming double. We're going to wave hello, and I'm going to go back over here. Let me see. Oh, nice. Green tea is a fabulous tea. Actually, I think green tea is the most popular in America. So, there's not very many red teas. Welcome, Spider-Man. Glad you could join us tonight, Spider-Man. Sorry for the, right, nice. Sounds good. I'm just gonna type it in the comments. Let's see. Yeah, that's usually when a lot of tea is drank, toward the summertime. The sound is bad tonight. I'm glad you could join us tonight, Joffrey. The sound might be bad, but as you can tell in the comments, name your favorite tea. Mine is Earl Grey. Delicious. Alright, so... And we have a last 3 minutes. Let's see. Good to see you too, Joffrey. Right. Yeah, So I'm um, all right. Haha, all right. All right, YouTube. I'm done with Palfish, and I'm glad you could join us for tonight's live stream. The Palfish patrons had a bad internet connection. I've been struggling with that on and off during my entire time here. And it looks like the box may need to be looked at, but I hope you guys enjoyed. See you all tomorrow for Chapter 3 of General Grant's memoir. And let's have some fun. Peace.